What is going on, guys? Your boy Mike here, and today we have a pretty big update on the Julio Jones situation. So in our last video, I showed you guys that the Atlanta Falcons are very motivated to trade Julio Jones, which in my opinion is a huge contradiction to most of the recent roster transactions that they have made. But nevertheless, the Atlanta Falcons appear to be in salary cap hell, and as a result of that, they are very motivated to try to move on from the multi-year Pro Bowler. And as a result, we heard of multiple teams, well, 3 in particular, that are currently linked to Julio Jones. So before we get to the content, all I'm asking for you guys is to sack the like button for the YouTube algorithm. You guys know that Roger Goodell doesn't like the work I do for the NFL, so typically he copyright claims my content, which is fine by me so long as this video gets pushed out to a larger audience. I have bigger goals than just making YouTube ad revenue, and a like really helps make sure that this video gets pushed out to as many people as possible. In addition to this, we're doing our second Apple Airpod Max giveaway, but this time, instead of for a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel, we're doing it for any person that follows me on Instagram. My Instagram is @theflightmike, and now that we get all of that out of the way, Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? It's been a very intriguing offseason for the Atlanta Falcons because they completely changed the way that their football operations are going to be run. They decided to hire a brand new general manager by the name of Terry Fontenot, who comes from the New Orleans Saints originally. But in addition to that, they also went ahead and hired a brand new head coach in Arthur Smith. And honestly, to give Terry Fontenot and any person that would ever be the general manager of the Atlanta Falcons some credit, I don't think there's a harder team in the entire NFL to be a general manager for than the Atlanta Falcons, because on one hand, this is a team that is just a few years removed from making a Super Bowl appearance, whose quarterback recently won an MVP. On top of that, their quarterback is still clearly a productive and good quarterback. And for those Atlanta Falcons fans that like to hate on Matt Ryan, if you put Matt Ryan on the Denver Broncos, then they are a Super Bowl contending team, and I truly believe that. There are a lot worse quarterbacks in the NFL than Matt Ryan, and clearly he isn't the problem here. But that's not the only issue. The fact that they have a quarterback that is clearly pretty good, on top of the fact that they had the number 4 pick in this year's NFL draft, in a draft that featured a ton of offensive stars in the top 10, but not so many defensive players in the top 5, the Atlanta Falcons had their hands tied. Should they once again go for offense despite the fact that they already have a really good offense and an absolutely porous defense? Well, apparently they tried to trade down. No team wanted to trade up with the Atlanta Falcons, and as a result, they selected the highest tight end draft pick in NFL history in Kyle Pitts. Now the Atlanta Falcons have a team that kind of resembles their 2012 NFL team that made a run to the NFC Championship that featured the likes of Roddy White, a young Julio Jones, and Tony Gonzalez, and of course Matt Ryan. Only this time Julio Jones is in Roddy White's situation, Calvin Ridley, I suppose, is in Julio Jones's old situation, and instead of Tony Gonzalez, you have Kyle Pitts. And although Kyle Pitts has yet to step foot onto an NFL field, he is currently being ranked amongst the top 5 tight ends in the NFL this year. And here's where things get really interesting, because the Atlanta Falcons are currently in salary cap hell. They owe a ton of money to Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, and Grady Jarrett, and clearly the results aren't what they were hoping for. So despite making a win now move in drafting Kyle Pitts, Julio Jones has been in trade rumors. Now, yesterday we mentioned that Derrick Henry was really trying to actively recruit Julio Jones to the Tennessee Titans, and A.J. Brown, someone that is already known to wear the number 11 on his jersey because he looks up to Julio Jones, said he'd even give up number 11 if Julio Jones was to come to the Titans. But in addition to that, we have a bunch of cryptic messages from Julio Jones himself, like this picture that he took with a fan while wearing a Dallas Cowboys hoodie. And and as much as I think Jerry Jones would jump all over the opportunity to bring a superstar wide receiver like Julio Jones to Big D, I could just tell you that this isn't reasonable at all whatsoever. I don't know how Julio Jones would fit in a wide receiver core that features himself, Amari Cooper, that's already getting paid $100 million, might I add, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb. It's a cute pipe dream, but if I was the Dallas Cowboys, I would focus more on the defensive side of the ball personally. But then you have something that's a little bit more substantial. The Atlanta Falcons are reportedly listening, but not initiating talks on Julio Jones. And of course, whenever a team says something like this, I really don't pay it much attention, because if you're a team that ends up retaining the star player that is in trade rumors, it's a bad look if you go out and say, hey, we were actively trying to trade this player and failed. So this is a good way to kind of save themselves, but that's not the point of this next statement. One of the teams that are interested might cause you to raise your eyebrows. Now, this is according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, who says that I've talked to a few teams who are at least wondering if the New England Patriots get involved here, because they've had an aggressive offseason in free agency with all of the signings they made. They have $16.2 million in cap space to take on a bloated salary like Julio Jones. And Jones and quarterback Cam Newton go way back from those Auburn-Alabama rivalry Iron Bowl days. And of course, those days in the NFC South together. They're both around the same age, so at the very least, they are very friendly. Now, I checked in on this, and there's nothing going on right now. You know, the Patriots typically talk internally about a lot of potential options that are out there, so I'm sure that they've had a discussion. Nothing moving there right now, but a source in Atlanta told me, look, we are still in the listening phase right now. We are not initiating talks, and there's still a chance Julio Jones is in a Falcons uniform next year. But the Patriots are probably one of several teams to watch here. And there's some more aggressive reports as well. This in like Michael Giardi saying that I can't speak to what Julio Jones wants, but was told that the Patriots have had internal discussions about the wide receiver. The 32-year-old had been incredibly durable until this past season, when he dealt with a troublesome hamstring. The seriousness of those discussions weren't made known to me, so I shall not speculate. Now, a beat writer by the name of Michael Hawley went ahead and said that Julio Jones actually wants to play for the New England Patriots, stating, you know who Jones really wants to play with? He wants to play with Cam Newton. Jones also reportedly thinks that Falcons QB Matt Ryan has lost a little on his deep ball. Now, this wouldn't be the first time the New England Patriots acquire a wide receiver from the Atlanta Falcons, because in 2019, they acquired Mohamed Sanu for a second rounder, and the Patriots already do have a history of trading for wide receivers like Josh Gordon and Randy Moss in the previous decade. But to be honest, as spicy as this rumor is, I really can't imagine Julio Jones coming out and saying, hey, I really want to play with Cam Newton because Matt Ryan's deep ball lost a little bit of a step. Because with all due respect to Cam Newton, you know I love Cam Newton, but Cam Newton's a significantly worse deep ball quarterback than Matt Ryan was. Even a bad Matt Ryan, like a Matt Ryan that quote unquote lost a step in his deep ball, is still better than a prime Cam Newton at throwing the deep ball. And that's nothing against Cam Newton, it's just never been his game. It's like me saying that a washed up Cam Newton is better at scrambling at the quarterback position than a prime Matt Ryan would be. It's literally like that. So I can't imagine Julio Jones literally saying, hey, Matt Ryan is not nearly as good at throwing the deep ball, so I want to go and play with Cam Newton, who has struggled at throwing the football. I also don't really know how I feel about the fact that, hey, Julio Jones and Cam Newton have this relationship because their teams were rivals with each other going back a decade ago, because you don't typically become buddy-buddy with the opposing team star players whenever you're in college playing those intense games. The only part of these reports that I personally am going to buy is the fact that I do think Julio Jones would be interested in playing for the New England Patriots if the Patriots were to trade for him. I don't think he's stamping his feet and demanding a trade to the Patriots, and I do think there are significantly better teams out there for Julio Jones. Like, I don't know, the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals already went ahead and signed two players of the 2011 NFL draft class that are supposed to be Hall of Famers at some point or another in J.J. Watt and A.J. Green. But get this, DeAndre Hopkins wants more and even came out and said that he'd restructure his contract for Julio Jones. The Cardinals have more than $10 million in cap space. And there are significantly better teams that could potentially fit him in as well, like the Las Vegas Raiders, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Indianapolis Colts. So there are multiple teams that are in on this, and Julio Jones could stay an Atlanta Falcon next year as well. So let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. And if you want to talk about this with me further, go ahead and join my Discord in the description down below as well. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.